Welcome to Coffee with Viking. I am Mike. Cheers. Exodus. Slaves follow Moses out of Egypt. Goodbye, Egypt. Freed from Egyptian slavery, Israelites hurriedly pack everything they can to carry and start their long journey home. And there's a little photo of them getting ready. Slaves follow Moses out of Egypt. A 7-year drought blisters Canaan, a region today known as Israel. So Jacob packs up his extended family, all 70 souls, and moves to Egypt. There's plenty of water along the Nile River, and Egypt's king has invited the family down since Jacob's son Joseph is one of the king's favorite officials. 430 years later, Jacob's descendants are still there. Somewhere along the way, a new king has turned them into a slave race. They build cities. God sends Moses to free them, but Egypt's king, identified only by his title, Pharaoh, insist on keeping his slave labor. He releases him only after God, acting through Moses, hammers the Egyptians with 10 plagues, decimating their crops, herds, and families. Moses leads the Israelites out of Egypt on what becomes a 40-year journey home. During that time, God organizes the people into a nation. He gives them hundreds of laws, religious, civil, and criminal. These laws set up a system for worship and for running the country with God as king. The main point of this book, in a series of dramatic miracles, God steps into human history and rescues the Israelites from slavery. Then he organizes them into a nation, complete with laws to govern them as his people. The book doesn't name the writer. An old Jewish tradition says Moses wrote it. Clue number 1, God told Moses to write down all these instructions, for they represent the terms of the covenant I am making with you and with Israel. Clue 2, Jesus called Exodus the writings of Moses. But many scholars say the stories were probably passed along by word of mouth for many centuries before Jewish writers finally wrote them down as part of the nation's history. The date, the Exodus, may have taken place in the mid-1400s BC or 200 years later. The early date of about 1440 BC is based on in 1 Kings 6:1. 1 Kings 6:1, and it came to pass in the 418th year after the children of Israel were come out of the land of Egypt, in the 4th year of Solomon's reign over Israel, in the month Ziph, which is the 2nd month, that he began to build the house of the Lord. which says that Solomon's earliest construction of the temple, about 960 BC, took place 480 years after the Exodus. The later date of the 1200s BC The later date of the 1200s BC is based partly on Exodus 1:11, which says the slaves built the city of Ramesses, the famed builder king of Egypt. Ramesses II ruled from 1279 to 1212 BC. And of course, the location was in Egypt. Exodus chapter 1, 13 through 14. The Egyptians worked the people of Israel without mercy. They made their lives bitter, forcing them to mix mortar and make bricks and do all the work in the fields. Jacob's extended family of 70 children and grandchildren overstay their welcome in Egypt. The drought in Canaan ends, but Jacob's family doesn't go home. Instead, they keep grazing their flocks in Egypt's lush northeast pastures. Jacob dies, and so do all his 12 sons, but they leave behind a fast-growing family. In time, perhaps after a century or more, a new Egyptian king realizes there are so many immigrants that they could take over this country, so he herds them into a slave labor force. They build at least 2 cities, Ramesses and Pithom. The king hopes that the brutal labor will wear them down and slow their surging birth rate. The original language describes the Israelites with a dramatic word that translates as a swarm. Plan A for population control fails. Hard work does nothing to stop the baby boom. So the king moves to Plan B, self-inflicted genocide. He orders Israelite midwives to kill all newborn Israelite boys, but they can't bring themselves to do it. The king announces Plan C. It's his final solution for the Israelite problem. When the Egyptians see an Israelite baby boy, they are to express their patriotism by throwing him into the Nile River. Since Egyptian cities rest along the banks of the Nile, this is a convenient way to kill a baby. One toss and the life is gone. No cleanup or burial needed. Exodus 2, 2 and 3. The women become pregnant and gave birth to a son. When the woman became pregnant and gave birth to a son, when she could no longer hide him, she got a basket made of papyrus reeds and waterproofed it with tar and pitch. She put the baby in the basket and laid it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile River. The woman is Jochebed, mother of Moses. In a way, she obeys the king. She puts her son in the Nile River. However, she makes sure he floats, and she puts him near where the king's daughter bathes. Hiding nearby, watching, is the baby's big sister, Miriam. As expected, the princess finds the baby basket, opens it, and realizes the boy must be an Israelite. Still, her heart melts. Miriam walks over and says she knows a woman who can breastfeed the boy and take care of him. Jochebed gets the job. She actually gets paid to be a mother to her own son. The princess adopts the boy and names him Moses, probably for two reasons. She drew him out of the water, and Moses sounds like a Hebrew word meaning draw out. Also, in Egyptian, the name simply means boy. It's a name often used in various forms among Egyptian royalty. Ahmose 1 and 2, along with Thutmose 1 through 4. Thutmose 1 ruling from 1524 to 1518 BC may have been the Israelite-hating king of the throne when Moses was born. If so, it's a tad funny that the Israelite-hating king ends up with an adopted Israelite grandson named after him. As an adult, Moses becomes emotionally attached to his people. When he sees an Egyptian beating a slave, Moses kills the Egyptian slave driver and then buries the corpse under the sand. But when Moses finds out that some Israelites saw the murder, he flees. He flees the country because he believes the king will order his execution. Moses travels east in the same direction he will later lead his people. He settles east of the Sinai Peninsula along what is now the border of Jordan and Saudi Arabia, where he meets a shepherd, marries one of the man's daughters, has a son, and works as a shepherd until he's 80 years old. And right here on this little side note, baby in a basket to go. Riding high baby Moses accompanies the new guardian, the princess of Egypt, while bathing in the Nile River. She discovered him floating in a basket among the riverbank reeds. There's a photo. Stay blessed. Stay caffeinated. Much love.